If you had one shot or one opportunity to seize everything you ever wanted in one moment, would you capture it or just let it slip? Yo. His palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. There's vomit on his sweater already. Mom's spaghetti, he's nervous, but on the surface he looks calm and ready to drop bombs. But he keeps on forgetting what he wrote down. The whole crowd goes so loud, he opens his mouth, but the words won't come out. He's choking how? Everybody's choking now. The clock's run out, time's up, over, loud. Snap back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. Oh, there goes gravity. Choke. He's so mad, but he won't give up. Daddies, he know he won't have it. He knows his whole back to these ropes. It don't matter, he's dope. He knows that, but he's broke. He's so stacked that he knows when he goes back to this mobile home, that's when it's back to the lab again, yo. This old rhapsody better go back to this moment and hope it don't pass him.
Listen, we can talk about the flag, but let's talk about... Wait.
And a very good morning, everybody. Welcome to Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media Live. As always, for Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, you know the drill. Like, retweet, share this show out on all social media platforms. Make sure you're following us on all social media platforms. And if you want to get involved in the conversation, best place to do that is on YouTube. Make sure you go over to the YouTube page. And when you're watching the show on YouTube, live or on replay, make sure you do me a favor. Click the like button. Click the subscribe button. Hell, if you really want to help us out, turn the notifications on so you don't miss a moment when DSM Media and Trending in the AM is live. I am your host, Phil Stifle, at Bearded Knowledge on Twitter. Joining me, as always, my main man, Jason Voorhees, at Mustang3651. Good morning, Jason. How you doing today?
Doing all right, man. How are you?
I'm fantastic because I think we've got a really interesting conversation to go today to kind of bring the whole week full circle. All week on this show, we've talked about trading Tyrese Maxey for Kevin Durant, trading Reese Hoskins for Frankie Montas, all the different things to do the Phillies and the Sixers. And today's show, I want to talk about the Eagles and how, in my mind, after spending this whole week talking, I kind of feel like the Eagles are closer and maybe better set up to win a title and have sustained success over the next 2, 3, 4 years than the Phillies and Sixers. Sorry, Flyers fans. The Flyers are far off. We'll get to Cutter, the master of the diamond cutter, later in the show, the fifth round or the fifth overall pick that the Flyers selected. But right now, I'm thinking that the Eagles are ahead of the other two teams. And Jason, let me tell you why. The Sixers. We have to talk about trading Tyrese Maxey for Kevin Durant. If that's what you need, maybe you're just not good enough. But as constituted right now, the Sixers are still a really good team. But the Sixers are all in right now. This upcoming season, they're all in. James Harden, Joel Embiid, whatever else happens, whether they keep Tobias Harris or not, they're going to be one of the front runners. But they still have to beat the Boston Celtics, who just played in the NBA Finals, have two superstars at 25 years old. They still got to beat the Milwaukee Bucks, who just won a title 2 years ago. They still have Giannis, Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday. You still got to beat the Miami Heat, who have played in the Eastern Conference Finals 2 of the last 3 years, played in the Finals 3 years ago, who still have Bam, Butler, Kyle Lowry. The Toronto Raptors almost beat us this year in the playoffs. They're still stacked. So the Sixers are hitting their peak at the worst possible time because there's more competition. The Phillies, hell, we trade for Frankie Montas. That doesn't put us over the top. There's still 7 teams probably in the NL that are better than the Phillies. They need a center fielder. They're going to have to address shortstop, second base, third. They're going to have to address so many positions. They need 2, 3 starting pitchers. They're going to make the playoffs. It's going to be a fun, run to October for the Phillies. But they're not legit contenders yet. They're still 3, 4, 5 pieces away. The Eagles, they have one question mark, quarterback. And that quarterback question mark still brought them to the playoffs last year. They have young talent. They have veteran talent. They got guys ready, grooming to take over when they're young. Their veteran talent moves on. They've got 2 draft picks in the first round next year. If Jalen Hurts is the guy, whatever weakness they have, they can use. If Jalen Hurts is not the guy, they still have the picks to replace him. And they still got the huge talented team to put around whoever becomes the starting quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles. In my mind. And on top of that, the Eagles right now are about to get to the peak at the best time because the NFC, who's better than the Eagles? For sure, on paper, 100%. The Rams, maybe the Buccaneers if Tom Brady does not decide to get old. Maybe the Packers if Aaron Rodgers can win without Devontae Adams. Jason, in my mind, the Eagles are trending in the right direction in the right time. They've got the right pieces and big picture over the next 2 to 3 years. If I had to put my money on it, I would put my money on the Eagles, not the Sixers or the Phillies, to win a title in the next 2 to 3 years. I just rambled on for 5 minutes. What are your thoughts on that whole big picture? We can get into each team specifically, but the big picture of what I'm saying here, how far off course am I? Or am I right on point here?
I mean, it's a lot to digest.
It is.
Your 5-minute ramble.
I know. We didn't lose
honestly
any at that moment either. So some people out there must be thinking that I might be onto something here.
I don't think you're far off. I do think there's a couple key elements that I look at when I look at the Eagles compared to the other three teams. Mm-hmm. I know you didn't include the Flyers, but let's say the Flyers are way last.
Right. They're way last.
Because of the organization, because of the top. Mm-hmm. And can I be honest with you? That's where it starts, at the top. And I think if you look at all four franchises, even though the Sixers right now on paper are set up right now to win, and they probably, as you said, are all in and closer to the title per se, I don't think it's close. I think the Eagles are far and away better as far as every aspect of their business. Mm-hmm. I think they have a better GM. I think all the grief that Howie Roseman gets in this town, I think out of all the four GMs, he's by far and away the best. Mm-hmm. There's areas, everyone has a strength and weakness, but Howie Roseman, overall body of work, he's way above all the other GMs. I mean, Matt Klentak ruined the Phillies for 5 more years. So that GM is gone. And I can't really say Dave Dombrowski's a bad GM, but Dave Dombrowski has not done, extremely drastic things to fix this team either. I at least at this point, I think it's still unwritten. I don't think, I think Daryl Morey is overrated. I think he gets put on a pedestal like he's this great GM and superstar, at his job. But in reality, how many titles has the guy won? Exactly. So I think it begins and starts and ends at the top. And the Eagles are definitely set up better than any of those teams there. I also believe that the Eagles do a better job drafting. Now, I know we give grief for J-Jaw and Rager, but you have to give them credit for Mailata and the other guys that they get. Goddard. They've had a lot of solid drafts as well as the ones that were bad. And in reality, the ones that were bad, it's just they were drastically bad to the point where we just harp on it and continue to harp on it. But overall, they draft better than the Phillies. They draft better than the Sixers, and they draft better than the Flyers. So they draft better. And what are the two keys to sustained success? Having a good business model, Eagles have that. Mm-hmm. Another key to sustained success, drafting and developing players, which the Eagles do better than all three teams. So
and there's a third
there, and that's the reason.
Can I throw a third aspect of that?
Okay, yeah.
Because you're talking about the draft and the business model. They also have the business model and the draft model where they draft and they also make sure they have extra draft capital, whether it's for a trade or this is not the first time in the last 20 years that the Eagles have had 4 first-round picks or 3 first-round picks in a 2-year span, because they're thinking now and they're thinking of the future at all times, the Philadelphia Eagles organization. And that's why I put them there, because if the Eagles come out this year and say, hey, we're really good, we made the playoffs last year and this year, but we got to tweak something, whether it's Jalen Hurts or somebody else, we've got the capital. So Howie Roseman keeps thinking now and big picture all the time. And that is what's underrated aspect of the Eagles organization, underrated aspect of Howie Roseman compared to the Sixers. I mean, the Sixers don't have any future capital whatsoever. They're all in right now. If this bombs, the Sixers are going to basically have to strip it down to an extent because they've moved so much on that they're so strapped cap wise, draft pick wise, that they're screwed. The Eagles, if something goes wrong this year, are not screwed. They can still tweak. That's kind of why my thought process is going this way.
I think there's also something to be said about these other teams have a tendency to be too patient. Mm-hmm. Whereas the Eagles, they recognize their mistakes and their flaws and they fix them quickly. Like, example, Carson Wentz. Mm-hmm. Carson Wentz, as soon as the shit started to go downhill, mm-hmm. Howie Roseman didn't wait and try to, let me try to fix this guy like the Sixers did with Ben Simmons. He just got rid of him. And that's, I think, a key factor why the Eagles never really fall to the ground. Because as soon as they start to fall or show signs of weakness, mm-hmm. they turn it around. And mm-hmm. that has to be a vision. And like,
well, you look at it. We won a Super Bowl in 2017. In 2020, we were a complete and total train wreck. And then we turned it right around and made the playoffs in 2021.
That's what I mean.
And I just don't think that with other teams.
I think the other teams, I think the Phillies, the Sixers,
absolutely,
they'll sit there and falter around with mistakes that they made because they're too proud and they don't want to admit that they made those mistakes. They like, I hate to keep harping on Ben Simmons, but that's an example.
Absolutely.
Ben Simmons, they waited too long. The Phillies, they've done it, with guys like, you talked about Reese Hoskins. Like, how long is it too long to wait to get rid of him? I don't know. Like, I'm not saying it's the right move, but you got to look at these things. Mm-hmm. When you're looking at bettering your team, you have to look at it for the now and the future. And like you said, the Eagles do that very, very well. So I don't know. It's hard for me to.
I want to get your opinion on the other part of what I said in my opening monologue there, which some of it's luck too. Some of it is hitting that peak and having the future assets at the right time. The Eagles are getting to a time where the best in the NFC is coming down. The Sixers are hitting their peak and going all in at the moment when 3 or 4 other teams are also hitting their peak. Or, like, you could argue that the Boston Celtics are kind of where the Eagles are. They're going upwards because their 2 best players are 25 years old. The Miami Heat might be at that top ready to come down a little bit. Boston is at that peak just like the Sixers. But the Eagles, realistically speaking, how many teams? Like, I only named.
Don't forget the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, well, I mentioned them in the monologue too. They're there. The Eagles. How many teams can you realistically say are 110% better, at least set up for the next 2-3 years in the NFC than the Eagles? Outside of the Rams.
It's all in the West. I know you're right.
I'm saying I'm keeping my
valid point that it's when you say luck, luck at the timing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, so that's the other part of why I think the Eagles are set up for a better run than the Sixers and the Phillies to an extent, is because the timing seems to be working out perfectly for the Eagles right now.
Yeah, I think listen, I know we cover the Phillies daily because obviously we're a daily show, and that's right now the sport that's going on. And I know a lot of times we vent our frustrations at the Phillies, but let's be honest, it's not like the Phillies are a bad team, and you're not saying that. What you're saying is right now at this point in time, the Eagles are set up for long-term success, whereas the Phillies have kind of backed themselves into a corner with years of poor drafting and having a poor farm system to replenish your team, because that's the lifeblood of how teams are able to succeed long-term. You look at the Astros, they're still doing it. The Astros won a World Series, but the Astros run has been a lot longer than where they won the World Series. It was a long time coming where they built up their prospect pool, and now they have a bunch of guys like Yordan Alvarez, guys that mash the ball. Altuve's still fairly young to the point where it's not like he's ready to retire or go away. And they draft a guy like Carlos Correa, and then they draft so well that they're able to get rid of him because they have a younger guy that's a younger Carlos Correa. And that's really how you build your teams. And I think just the Phillies have been so backwards, and they are on the right track. Let's face it. We've talked about that. We had Jack Fritz on. Cotter Hart knows a lot. He talks about a lot, because he's plugged into the farm teams. They are fixing it, but it takes a long time. It's not like it happens overnight. So the Phillies model is just like, okay, let's sign a bunch of free agents to try to win. But unfortunately, you got the Dodgers, you got the Mets, you got teams that
a lot of teams
better rosters right now. So it's not that the Phillies are bad. It's just they're not
there yet.
Contending.
Yeah. Look, the Phillies are going to look. Yesterday, another come from behind win, 5-3. They took 2 out of 3 in the Nationals. But we spent all day yesterday talking about trading Rhys Hoskins. And the centerpiece of the trade market for all teams. There's going to be a dozen teams looking for Frankie Montas. And I was bringing up, what kind of package. But then after the show, I'm like, but what good does bringing Frankie Montas really do big picture for the Phillies? It's not like we're just that one piece away. If we were a little further ahead, Frankie Montas might be that guy that puts us over the top. But then again, you start thinking he is under control for another year. So who knows? But, the Phillies aren't one piece away. The Sixers, they have very few moves left to make. The Eagles, they have one major question mark, and that's the quarterback. And that's it. And they have you talk about the Houston Astros being able to constantly, get rid of a Correa and then have his replacement ready to go. Look at the Eagles. I mean, they are a perfect blend of young talent, Devontae Smith, Jordan Mailata, Nakobe Dean, all the guys we drafted this year, mixed with the Fletcher Coxes of the world, the A.J. Browns of the world, Darius Slay. They've got somebody like Jason Kelce, whether he retires after this year or not, you've got 2 guys you've drafted viable to replace him at a peak level. They've already got them set up. It's like the Phillies, they're not like that. The Sixers, they have no backup plan. The Eagles, they've got a plan now. They've got a backup plan, and they've got replacements, and they've got assets going down the line. So it's kind of like, do you get what I'm getting at there? They're running their organization kind of like the Astros to an extent, where they're constantly ready for the next step, the next person, the next man up. They're there and ready to go.
Well, and I think that's the answer to your question. I think that's why the Eagles are in a better position than all 3 teams. And honestly, let's not sugarcoat it. You said, "Oh, the Eagles have everything set except the quarterback." Well, that's a pretty big area.
Absolutely.
But but here's where I'm at with that. So yes, the quarterback is still a question, but all reports are that he is getting better, and I think they've surrounded him with enough talent where there is no excuse. If he doesn't get better, I know for a fact, because we saw it with Carson Wentz, they're not going to sit around and wait. If he's not right, then they're gonna go and get the next guy. They will. Right. And I have faith that Howie will do that. I just think that a lot of people are just still, like we talked about it, how there's sides of the faction on Jalen Hurts is like a bigger faction, like either side. There's one side that thinks he's going to be like, Peyton Manning. And then there's another side that thinks like he will never be a quarterback in the NFL.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think you can make either answer. Obviously, he's never going to be Peyton Manning. But I don't think you can sit there and say that he will never succeed in the NFL because
he's already succeeded in the NFL.
Exactly.
If you think about it, all the question marks we have on Jalen Hurts, they're all valid question marks. Every guy that thinks he's Ryan Leaf or Jamarcus Russell, valid points, I am sure. But as bad as people think he is, he still led a pretty poorly talented team last year to the playoffs.
Hey, and at least he was a second-round pick. So if he doesn't work out, he was a second-round pick. I'd rather be that guy than the team that drafts a guy number 1.
Baker Mayfield.
Like, yeah. How many teams have done that?
Who would have thought Baker Mayfield got traded for a 5th-round pick? That's it, a conditional 5th-round pick at that.
Carson Wentz got more than him.
Twice Carson Wentz got more than him.
I mean, that's bad.
Dude, I said when that Baker Mayfield draft, who else was in that draft class? I said all those guys. That was going to be Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield. Who was the other guy in that draft? There was 3 guys went in the top of that draft.
I can't remember.
Yeah. Anyway.
Flop.
Yeah, dude. Baker Mayfield, man. Come on. That's bad.
Can I give you a hot take?
Organization is.
Can I give you a hot take after all this?
Yeah.
I think Sam Darnold's still going to be the starter. I think Baker Mayfield's not good enough to beat it. I think Sam Darnold, honestly, is a guy that still could be resurrected. Dude, he was on the Jets.
Well, I said that about Sam Darnold last year when he got traded to the Panthers. I'm like, all right, I'm all in on the Panthers. It all depends on whether Christian McCaffrey can play a full 17 games or not. That'll be the question. Yeah. Howie is a genius for that Wentz trade. Absolutely. If Baker Mayfield, all Baker Mayfield can get, the Browns can get, that whole Browns organization, that's look at the Browns organization and how they do business and compare it to the Eagles.
I mean,
bringing in Deshaun Watson when you got Baker Mayfield, you just paid Baker Mayfield. Then you got to get rid of Baker Mayfield. You don't know what's going on with Deshaun Watson. That organization, damn, that's all I can say. They're not in a good place, that organization. And I don't know who the GM is in Cleveland. Is it still, what's his name? Is it, what's his name? Stefanski? Is that the GM?
I forget who the GM in Cleveland is, but I think they're just a team that they've obviously had a brutal history of being bad. I mean,
they are set up for failure. And if something,
the last time that I remember, and this is just showing my age, but the last time that I actually remember being excited about Cleveland team, not that I'm ever followed them like a lot, but was back when Bernie Kosar was the quarterback. If that should tell you all you need to know.
I knew you were gonna say Bernie, man. I knew it. Bernie Kosar, man. He was something.
That's realistically the last time the Browns were good.
But look at that. Look at that organization. Look at the Eagles. They're set up for, I talk a little WWE occasionally. They have their slogan, then, now, and forever. The Eagles have been set up now for the last couple of years outside of 2020. They're set up for now, and their future is set up. It's going to take a Cleveland Browns type collapse in the front office for this to at least not be sustained success where we're making a deep playoff run. I'm not going to guarantee a Super Bowl, but they're going to be set up to make a run to the Super Bowl now for the next 3 or 4 years, whether Jalen Hurts works out or not, because they've got the picks, they've got the players, they got the organizational blueprint that has proven to work year in and year out. They are set up.
Yeah, because let's also remember too that they could go one of two ways. They could, say Jalen Hurts doesn't work out.
Absolutely.
They could still go out and get a veteran quarterback because they have a roster now that's ready and on the rise to be able to win. Yeah. Exactly. So they don't have to necessarily go and draft another guy. They could go the other route, but they have options. That's the difference. Look, they have options.
You talked about, not sticking around on the Carson Wentz experiment too long, and, they may or may not stick with Jalen Hurts. There were more rumors coming out this week. I forget that who broke the news, but somebody's inside source saying that if Jalen Hurts comes out and struggles early this year, not to be surprised if he gets benched, because they still want to be a pass-heavy offense. They still want to run a certain thing. It's just going to show that they're not going to accept, no success. They want to see success. They want to see the results, and they're set up for it. I can't, how do I say this? Be more excited for the Eagles' big picture future than any. I can't put it into words comparing it to the Sixers and the Phillies. look, I want to see the Sixers win a title. We've seen in my recent adult lifetime a Phillies and an Eagles championship. I want that Sixers championship. But the road to the championship for the Sixers is 10 times harder than it would be for the Eagles at this point. At least playing for the championship.
Well, because the NBA is different than the NFL. It's a league of the superstars.
Yeah, but it's also you talk about how like the Eagles in the NFC. You said all the good teams. Like you look at it, you look at all the top quarterbacks in the NFL. You know, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson. They're all in the AFC. If you look at the NBA, the Western Conference, you got the Suns, you got the Warriors, you got some top teams there. But the depth in I didn't even talk about the Hawks. You know, they brought in DeJounte Murray to pair with Trae Young. That team's on. So not only do they have three,
they have an easier path to a championship.
Easier path. And same thing in baseball. The Phillies. You name the Dodgers, the Chargers, the Padres. I think I've called the Padres the Chargers like 3 times in the last 2 weeks. I'm not sure why. The Padres, the Dodgers, the Giants, the Braves, the Brewers, the Cardinals, the Mets. That's 7 teams that are at or above the level of the Phillies right now. It's all. I think the timing aspect of it is kind of like a weird topic to talk about, but it's a legit topic, and that's the timing. I think is why the Eagles are set right now. I mean, who are the quarterbacks in the NFC that on the Eagles side of it that are superstar? Aaron Rodgers, but he's 38. Tom Brady, 44. Matthew Stafford, he's not a superstar quarterback, but he's the reigning Super Bowl champion. That's it. There's question marks with Kyler Murray. There's always question marks with Dak Prescott. You got Kirk Cousins. You got the 2 young guys, Fields and Lance. Nobody knows anything of what they're going to be. Marcus Mariota is starting in the NFC right now.
I know you're saying Kirk Cousins, but Kirk Cousins is actually consistently good. He's not great.
Dude, so I've been putting together my.
He may be one of the most underrated guys right now because
he's rated about right. He's an average. He's an underrated fantasy football quarterback. He's an average football quarterback. He's never going to be the reason why you win a Super Bowl, but he also wouldn't be the reason why you won't make the playoff. Like he's ranked perfectly 14, 15, 16, somewhere right in the middle there. He's never going to be a top 10 quarterback, but he's never going to be a bottom 20 quarterback. You know what I mean? So he's perfect there. Carter's saying he's got the Phillies and Eagles ahead of the Sixers. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, yeah. So he's actually got the Sixers 3rd on that list. That's tough. So all right, so we're in agreement that the Eagles are set up the best for that run. Would you put the Phillies or the Sixers? Like I said, Carter's putting the Sixers at 2, or the Phillies at 2 and the Sixers at 3. I mean, I still probably put the Sixers ahead of the Phillies, but
are we talking for sustained success?
Well, sustained success means, so to me, sustained success is not just winning. It's winning and having deep playoff runs. Phillies. And if the ball bounces the right way, maybe a title run.
Phillies. Because Embiid, I'm going to tell you why. Because Embiid's window is short. And if this doesn't work this year, they might have to blow it up. Like, that's where the Sixers are. They're like the Sixers are a team that has to win now. They're not a team that will win now or should. They have to. Yeah. There's no other choice. A lot of pressure with the Sixers because Embiid is at his absolute top peak. Like right now, like you have a guy that's probably. I mean, I think he's top 3 in the sport. I do. I mean, maybe I'm, I think he's a top 3 NBA player right now.
Dude, I don't think you're wrong saying they're all in it if it doesn't work this year. I mean, it's this year or what, They
have to win, and we need results.
Can you think of, and this question, I didn't even have time to think about it. Is there a team in Philadelphia history in the last since 2000 that has had more pressure on it to win a title than this upcoming Sixers season?
Well, I mean, I think it's the most, but I think the last team that I look at like this was the 97 Flyers. They were a team that was like, that had to win. Yeah. They had to win, right? They had, arguably at the time, the best NHL player, one of them, Eric Lindros.
Yeah.
They had a roster that was built to win now.
Mhm.
And of course, they went up against the buzzsaw and they faced the team in the West that was the best team. How many times have we seen the Flyers, even though the Flyers haven't had recent success?
Right.
How about all those teams that went to the finals in the 80s?
Mhm.
You went up against, unfortunately, you're going to talk about being in bad luck and bad timing. You went against Edmonton. Edmonton may have had the best dynasty team in the NHL history.
Yeah.
And you went up against them and you lost. Had those Flyers teams played anybody else, maybe we win a cup 25 years ago.
Maybe.
But,
Yeah. I never really thought of it that way with them, but yeah, I mean, look, you said it, and now I'm just kind of stuck on it. That if they don't win this year, the Sixers, they might have to blow it up.
I don't know what else. I mean, I look at it like
does that mean that the pressure there, Daryl Morey's legacy, James Harden's legacy, maybe to an extent Joel Embiid's legacy, all on the line. Not in the next 3 years, this year. And for that reason, you guys may be convincing me. I had the Sixers 2 on the list, Phillies 3, but you guys may be convincing me that the Sixers are 3 on that list because it's all in and the pressure's all on. We've seen James Harden collapse under pressure. He is a ghost in the playoffs. Look, when we got him from Brooklyn, I had Brooklyn people telling me. I had Houston people telling me. He disappears. He's a ghost come playoff time. Well, I think it pretty much happened again this year. Last year, we had Jalen Hurts. Nobody likes Jalen Hurts. He took us to the playoffs. He thrived under that pressure towards the end of the season. Nobody on the Sixers does that. I don't know. It's very interesting. And I think this conversation's getting even more, it's bringing up more thoughts into my head as we go here.
I'm not down on the Sixers. Obviously, the Sixers have talent. I mean, they have Joel Embiid. Any team that has Embiid is gonna be there, in the conversation. But it's the pieces around him, and it's the way that they've built the team now. They've backed themselves into a corner. They legit have no room for error. They either have to win because, like I said, Embiid's time is short. Not in a sense that he's not going to be good, but he will always have the injury concern.
Absolutely.
He got injured again this year. I mean, I know it was a fluke injury, but it was still an injury. You have to go by the facts.
Flukes
and he's been injured almost every single year. Embiid is injured. And you have no guy to replace Embiid. You had Drummond in the regular season last year, but then, of course, you traded him for Harden, and that backfired in the playoffs because when you didn't have Embiid, you struggle. And I don't know, man. Like I said, I don't know basketball to the same extent that you do, but what I do know is that it's frustrating because I want Embiid to win, and he deserves it. Mm-hmm. But, I look at this roster as a whole, and the only guy on the roster that I could see being long-term success is Maxey. But Maxey's not going to carry a team if Embiid's not the answer. So, I don't know, dude. I don't know.
Again, bringing it full circle. If they have to blow it up, because it's not like if the Sixers don't win this year, if the Eagles can't win because of Jalen Hurts, they have assets, options, a plan to fix it. If the Sixers don't win this year, you don't have draft pick assets. You don't have desirable contracts to trade. They're literally the team as you see it today. There might be tweaks because Tobias Harris may be traded. But as the team's constructed today, what's today? July 8th, 2022. If this doesn't work, nobody's going to take James Harden off your hands. You might have to you would have to consider trading Joel Embiid to rebuild, replenish, do all that. But that's going to just create a riot in Philadelphia if you got to trade Joel Embiid.
Did James Harden actually sign the contract yet?
He hasn't signed anything yet. There's still not even official rumors. There's just that it's going to be a 3-year, $109 million deal, which is about, I said I was okay with him about 3 years, $100 million, 3 years, $109 million. That's $3 million a year. It's not much different. But still, you've backed yourself into a corner, like you said, with the James Harden aspect of it. Because that's Daryl Morey. bringing in a PJ Tucker, 37-year-old guy. If he all of a sudden hits a brick wall, you're not going to be able to trade his contract. You went out and got two guys in Daniel House and Trayvon Queen. They're okay guys. They're not too much better, not too much worse. They're not as bad. They're not much better than what we had.
But can I play devil's advocate here, Phil? Because a lot of times, and we were on a show, I believe it was Monday, and we had brought up the conversation about would you trade for Kevin Durant? Now, obviously, Kevin Durant is a generational player. It's not like you'd be getting a guy that's going to come here and then fall off a cliff. But you talked about the aspect, and we were kind of going back and forth with Mark about, would you sell your soul to win a championship now? Well, I legitimately think that's what the Sixers are trying to do, but maybe they're not doing it the right way. But they are doing that. So can you really be mad at them? Like, we're sitting here having this conversation. It's a conversation.
Yeah.
We might not agree, but it's almost like, on one sense, we're saying, oh, well, Sixers, they're stupid. They're doing this. But in reality, they're just taking a different approach. They're trying to win now, and they're basically at a point where they have to win now. Mm-hmm. Whereas the Eagles have always done their business with both things in mind. They've always done, even in 2017, that team wasn't supposed to win a Super Bowl. No. Let's face it. That was lightning in a bottle. I'm not saying they weren't a great roster. They were. But they also, a lot of things went their way that year. And you can't say that every year when you look back at seasons on teams. You just can't.
No, I agree with you 100% on
But I think overall, the Eagles have always done it. I mean, at least since Howie Roseman's been a GM. I mean, maybe back in the day, they didn't kind of do their business the same way. You look at those Buddy Ryan teams. I don't know if they necessarily tried to.
I would say, for what you're saying, just count the Eagles under Jeffrey Lurie.
Yeah, I was talking. Okay, so better.
Jeffrey Lurie and Joe Banner, Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman. They've done it basically for the last. When did Joe Banner take over? Like 1999, 2000, somewhere in that.
Over for toes.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the last 20 to 25 years, the Eagles have done business. You
get what I'm saying.
Yeah,
so
I just want you to think of it that way.
Lurie, they've done it where they've tried to win now, but they also always have an eye for the future. And maybe that's it. Maybe that's more of a attainable in the NFL model than it is in the NBA. Because I think you have to look at that too, Phil.
Yeah.
In the NBA, it's not the same anymore. It's the super teams, and teams are going that route where they're all in and they're trying to win. And not every team can get that generational guy.
And the teams that aren't all in, they're trading what they have to get the picks so that in 3 to 5 years they can be all in. It's
exactly, because
they'll get a cycle in the NBA.
They want to get a first round guy that's going to be a difference maker. It is what it boils down to, because there's not a plethora of guys like that. I mean, you have your top 20 NBA players, and then you have the rest. Mm-hmm. So I think you got to also keep that in mind when we're having this conversation. Is it even possible in the NBA? I mean, the Sixers had the process where they did strip it down, and so it is possible, but that's a long-term thing, and it's a lot of pain to put you through your fans.
Absolutely,
put your fans through.
I had a lot of fun watching that 10-win Sixers team. I was there. I watched every single one of those games almost. You know what? And they clawed and they fought. They had energy. I did enjoy. Well, I mean, it sucked. It was awful losing 72 games, and there was like 3 guys that even made it in the NBA after that. I mean, we had some bad games, but you know what? I enjoyed it, and it would make. I mean, Casey, Casey's saying that if the Sixers win a championship, it would incite the biggest celebration. People like me that stuck through the process and watched all those games, it would just be the ultimate, high after the ultimate low. And I agree. It's just, I agree with you saying it's a little different in the NBA because of the way the league, it's not just certain teams, it's the whole league has gravitated towards a certain direction of building franchises. Whether it's good or not, I don't know, but it's interesting. So I think this has been a fun conversation. I want to transition a little bit here. I got an interesting football question. I texted you about this. I didn't text you what I was going to ask you, but I texted you. I saw an interesting little blurb, blimp, whatever you want to call it. I don't watch or listen to a lot of Pat McAfee because I don't listen to the big names very often. I listen to the smaller podcasts and smaller channels and stuff like that. But earlier this week on his channel, on his show, and you know Pat, do you listen to Pat McAfee ever? Or?
I've heard him on. I've sometimes you see it on Twitter, and he has his thing.
Yeah. So he put out in a show earlier this week. Tony Roten, Hollis Thomas. Oh my God, Casey. So Pat McAfee put out something on one of his shows this week, and I saw some people debating it and arguing it. And he said every NFL team, hell, every professional sports team should have their stadium made into a dome because the elements being a factor in an outcome of a game change. He just doesn't like it. He wants the elements taken out of play. And it got me thinking. I see you shaking your head no. And I saw people saying, well, some of the best games in football history had elements involved in it. But also, as Eagles fans, Jason, you're saying no. If the Eagles played in, 1989 against the Bears in the playoffs in a dome instead of in the fog, we might have had a Super Bowl back then.
Happens both ways.
It does. It does.
I know. That's the
you
one.
Don't want to eliminate it?
I think part of having fun, the fun of the game as a fan is going to an outside game in the cold, seeing a bunch of drunk people. Come on.
I've been to three regular season Eagles games in my life because I hate the cold weather.
Dude, I was at the NFC Championship. It was so freaking cold, and I loved it. I ate that shit up.
Dude, my birthday, 1999, it was Andy Reid's first year before McNabb. It was a December game against the Patriots. It was snowing. It was like that wet, cold, freezing snow. And I was completely miserable.
I'm telling you, dude. I can't agree with Pat McAfee. Sorry. I just can't. I think it takes the fun out of the game.
Right, listen, but it also affects the outcome.
I don't think so.
You're saying the fog bowl didn't affect the outcome of that game?
It didn't affect it for the Bears.
But it affected it for the Eagles. Rain.
Okay, it's the luck of the draw. If it would have happened the opposite way, we would have been happy.
I don't know. A lot of people are against it, but I'm just thinking equal playing field. You'd get less variables brought into the
just think it's one of these.
Why do they have the Super Bowl in a warm climate city or a dome every single year?
Money.
Oh, it's because they don't want the weather and
because of money, Phil. They've talked about
give them more money.
Talked about the idea of having it in an outdoor, colder stadium. They have kept talking about that. I know it hasn't happened.
Where's the money come into play on it?
Because I'm saying
Jeffrey
people
Lurie
that are paying for the
$1 million to get a Super Bowl.
The people that are paying for the tickets make that decision. They're not gonna want to go to. You're right. It is about that cold, but the average Joe fan, if they could afford a Super Bowl ticket,
the average fan doesn't go to the Super Bowl.
Well, I get that, but so then that's why that's okay for the Super Bowl. But I don't want to. No, I cannot go to an Eagles game in a dome at home. No, thank you. Sorry. End of story. You can argue a wall.
Look, I was at the Eagles Monday night game in 2019 against the Giants. It was December. It was rainy. It was cold. Wentz led a huge comeback with I think it was Greg Ward and Boston Scott were his big two weapons in that game. They were down. Huge comeback from Carson Wentz. Dude, I had tickets in. I forget what it's called. It's not like the private club boxes, but it's that level where, there's lots of bars and restaurants. It's like middle of the stadium. It's like some kind of club box area and stuff like that. And it was so cold and miserable out. I watched the fourth quarter comeback inside the stadium at the bar on a TV when I had paid tickets out on the field at the 50-yard line because the cold weather made me so miserable. And it was during the comeback when I went inside. I'm like, I can't do this.
You helped that comeback. It was your mojo.
I guess. Dude, I can't tell you. I would go to so many more football games, so many more Eagles games if it was inside a dome. Or if Philly was in San Diego, say, or some warm, if they remember back in the day when they were this close to moving to Arizona, people
Phil,
forget about that.
That's why you and I both want to move to Florida. I mean, let's face it. I agree with you on that. I don't know. It's going to suck.
All right. I just wanted to bring that up. I thought it was a little fun topic there.
It is a fun topic, but obviously you and I disagree. I'm a traditionalist. I don't want to take that away from.
I mean, by doing that, you'd be eliminating the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field. You'd be eliminating the Soldier Fields. You'd be eliminating the snow in Buffalo. And would Bills Mafia exist if the Bills games were played inside and not in snow half the time? I get all Seattle, and man, could you imagine the Seattle crowd if that Seattle stadium was a dome? Man, that stadium rocks without a lid over the top of it. Can you imagine how much that stadium would rock if you had that exact same noise inside? Interesting on both sides. But again, I know the traditional side of it.
But I do think it's funny that what KC was saying, that Pat McAfee's a former kicker. Yeah. Of course, a kicker would want a dome. I mean, so it's kind of like biased.
All right.
It's a biased take, but
it's Pat McAfee trying to come up with a hot take, but a stupid hot take that's turned into a pretty interesting.
It's a good debate. I mean, it is. I think you could get probably 7 people, or you could probably have a 10-person panel, and you probably have 5 for it and 5 against. I mean, it's some people want it, some people don't. But I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong. I think it's fun. It is. It's fun to disagree. That's what these shows are good for. I mean,
I just think
we agreed on everything. It'd be so boring.
It's also everything in sports, evolves through time. And I get what you're saying. It's the tradition and it's the way it's been, but everything evolves. So put a lid.
You don't have to be progressive in every single aspect. I like progressive thinking and moving forward, but no.
Real quick, 2 minutes. I wasn't. You're saying progressive, and I wasn't expecting that segue. So I just want to switch my ESPN.com tab here to the website. The Oakland Raiders did hire the first Black woman as team president in the NFL. Maybe in all of sports. I'm not sure. I'm bringing up the article real quick so I can get her name. Sandra Douglas Morgan. First NFL in any NFL organization. She was born in Vegas. Oh, so not the Oakland Raiders. Sorry, the Las Vegas Raiders. Dude, I'm off. I'm still thinking of dome stadiums right now. Thoughts on the Raiders of all teams being the team that leads the progressive movement and doing that and everything?
I mean, I think it's impressive. I mean, obviously, it's been a long time coming in all sports. We've talked about it. I mean, I know I had saw a report about a female being hired as a coach in the NHL. And obviously, it wasn't a head coach, but it's still a female coach, like behind the bench full time. I mean, I think teams are starting to realize, and organizations are realizing, like, women matter. I mean, it's not something that, we should be surprised about. We should be celebrating it. And I think it's awesome. I mean, I do. I think
I'm actually reading up on her. Not only is she the first Black female president in the NFL, she was the first person, period, of color to be the chairman of the Nevada Gaming Control Board. So she's been breaking barriers for women for a long time. It's interesting. I was just, as you were talking there, I was kind of reading a little bit on her. That's pretty impressive that she's been breaking the barriers for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm happy for her, and I hope it happens more often in the NFL. And I think the NFL is
sports.
In all sports, yes. I think other sports have started to receive dribs and drabs. I mean, I think we talked about the NBA, who where do you think what sport do you think will have the first female head coach? And we all agreed that we think it's the NBA. Mm-hmm. I think it's great. But I do think it's kind of ironic that it was the Raiders organization who's always had a black cloud over them for the longest time. Obviously a lot of crazy things happened there. Mm-hmm. Obviously John Gruden just a couple years ago.
Well, dude, I completely forgot about the whole John Gruden thing. It's kind of crazy. I kind of bashed that to the back of my mind there. That's kind of interesting there. All right. So this is going to be the longest time since this show's inception that I put this up on the board, Jason. And this part of the show is all you, because I literally know nothing about this guy. But the Flyers had the 5th overall pick in the NHL draft last night. They picked, with that 5th pick, Cutter Guthier. I don't know. He's Canadian, so it's probably Guthier or something like that.
Yeah, it's Cutter Guthier.
The master of the. I'm just waiting for a Diamond Dallas Page. Bam! Diamond Cutter out of nowhere. That's all I can say is make wrestling references to his first name. What do we know about Cutter? Is this a really good pick for the Flyers? He's pretty young from what I read. The quick blurb I read, he still wants to play 1 year in college and then be ready to play for the Flyers. How far away is he? Is he a good pick? Was there someone else on the board that you wanted at that moment? Let me know. Yeah, Casey saying, sell me on Cutter.
Okay, well, if you look at the Flyers, first and foremost, obviously the big story of the draft was Shane Wright dropping. And in a perfect world, I think we all would have loved. Yeah, he went forward to Vegas, Seattle. The Kraken took him. He wasn't going past them. But I mean, in my heart of hearts, I wanted the Flyers to trade up for him, but I knew it wasn't going to happen. That being said, I'm very happy with Cutter Guthier as the pick. I personally wanted the Flyers to fix their defense because I still think they have holes there. I think if you looked at the team, I would have loved Nemec, but he obviously went too. But Cutter Guthier is a very interesting player to me. He's a guy that goes against what the Flyers realistically have been doing lately. If you look at the Flyers' previous drafts in recent history, they've either tried to draft small, fast forwards or big, slow forwards. Well, Cutter Guthier is a big, fast forward. So he has both. He's basically what is termed a power forward. He's right now, I mean, he still has some room to grow and fill out, but right now he's 6'3" and he's 201.
He's only 18, 19 years old.
That's what I mean. So he could still put on 10, 15 pounds. So he's a big boy. He's an offensive player, but he's a defensive minded as well. He's not a guy that's going to score 70 goals. He's not a sniper, but he actually is very versatile. Now, right now he's a left winger, but in Boston College, which he will be attending 1 year, he is going to play center, and he's made that known. So he's going to provide some versatility, down the line when he's ready to come up, on this roster. I like the move, and he's not only is he big in size, he's gritty. He's a guy that we need. Philly's going to love him. From what I heard, I've never watched him play, but everything I've read about him, it said Philly's going to fall in love with the guy. So I got to be happy with the pick. I know, like I said, a lot. I would have loved to have got Shane Wright, but come on, man.
Look, so I got
that were.
So teach me, because I'm like I said, when it comes to the deep depths of hockey knowledge, I don't have hockey. To me is like basketball for you. He's 18, 19 years old. He's going to play 1 year in college. How far off, you're already saying he's a pretty good hockey player already at this point. Do hockey players, how long are we going to have to wait to see the Diamond Cutter in black and orange versus in the minor league organization? Do hockey organizations bring guys up to the big club at 20, 21 years old.
Unfortunately, that's been part of the problem for the Flyers. I think a lot of times the Flyers have been forced to rush these guys.
Okay.
It depends, Phil. There's some guys that are, it's just like any other sport. There's some guys that are pro ready now, like a guy like Matt Savoy. Matt Savoy would have, you probably could have saw him on your roster day one this year if you drafted him. He's that ready. But he doesn't have as high of a ceiling. A guy like Cutter Guthier, it might take a year or two to be on the NHL roster, but he has a higher ceiling long term. And I that's why I like the move. But I think you have to have some patience. The Flyers recently, I think a lot of their development issues, and I talked about this. I was on Flyers Alley last night with Jesse Bell. Flyers Alley, for those you don't know, they're under Old City Sports Network. Really great guys. They know a lot. You know, they're plugged in. They're plugged into the Flyers organization. And Jesse was saying that, kind of agreed with me, that the Flyers' problem isn't necessarily their drafting. It's the way that they develop these guys, and they kind of rush them into the NHL level when they're not ready. And then that's why they don't become what they should. Like a guy like Nolan Patrick, another example, like a guy that just busted out. But 9 out of 10 people in that draft wanted Nolan Patrick. So it's not like it's easy to be revisionist it's easy to play revisionist history and look back and say, see, they should have drafted this guy. But like I said, a lot of times prospects are what we say. They're prospects. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know. I can't sit here and say Cutter Guthier is going to be a superstar. Mm-hmm. He has the tools to be that. So I'm happy with the pick. I think he's definitely, I hope they do take a little bit of time. Don't rush the guy because you're in a rebuild now. So don't do something stupid. Like, we need to start getting guys like this, and we need to let them grow, and they have to reach their potential. We can't have any more Travis Konechny's. Travis Konechny's another guy, like, has a lot of tools and a lot of talent, but just never has put it together. And we keep saying, oh, this is going to be the year, and it's not the year. So it's frustrating as a fan. You want these guys to start turning it around and doing, the right thing. So like I said, I'm hoping that Cutter ends up being, the best player in this draft. Maybe when can we finally be lucky and be that team that gets the diamond in the rough, the guy that wasn't the first pick in the draft, but actually becomes the best player of that said draft? We look at that a lot. Like, I think Tyrese Maxey has that. We could look back and possibly say Tyrese Maxey was the best draft pick in the NBA that year, when his career is said and done.
Right.
And we got him at what, 23? So, but that takes sometimes a lot of luck. So, I don't know. It's hard to say.
I'm just curious. Like I said, I think that's interesting. I was curious how they play it, but you make good points because of the Konechny and the Patricks and just, bringing the kids up too soon. And we want instant gratification from our draft picks. That's what we want. Hell, I made a suggestion earlier this week. Bring Andrew Painter up to start this week because we're sure. Hell, I want instant gratification. But you make the right point there that sometimes that's not.
We all want instant gratification. But like
what she said,
in hockey terms, yes, hockey players actually do come up a lot quicker than in baseball. Like, you look at baseball prospects, there's guys that come into the league at 27 as a rookie.
I recall.
I mean, hockey, it's definitely a much younger driven sport. And I mean, Wayne Gretzky came up when he was 19 or 18. Like, all these guys do, because, it's a skill sport, like, where it's like totally built on all skill. Not that baseball isn't, but I just think hockey has just always been driven by bringing up the guys, quickly. I don't think it's necessarily the right move, though, depending on the player. Like I said, there's guys that are pro ready now, and then there's guys that you look at and you say, dude, he's 6'1", or no, he's 6'3", 201 now at 18 years old. Mm-hmm. Give him another year or two. He's probably going to be 6'3", 220, 230. Now you're talking like, I mean, that a forward that can skate fast, those kind of guys aren't you don't see them every day.
Right.
I mean, Eric Lindros was a big guy that could skate. That part of the game has kind of went away. If you look at the Flyers, they've drafted all smaller guys like Claude Giroux. Remember, Claude Giroux, he's only 5'11", like $180. He's a small guy. So I think you need to have some physicality matched with that skill. And I think Cutter was the perfect pick, and he's going to be definitely a Philly favorite.
I'm just going to keep doing my diamond cutter.
Cutter.
Yeah, you got to know your
obviously has the best name in the draft.
You got to know your Diamond Dallas Page knowledge to like the name Cutter. That's all. Anyway, we're gonna wrap the show up there. Jason, thank you for that excellent hockey knowledge. We're gonna take the what's up with the Flyers off. Thank you, everybody. We've had another great week here on Trending in the AM. Make sure if you're watching this video on YouTube, you hit like, you hit subscribe for us, turn notifications on. Make sure you choose to follow on all social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You can follow me at Beard of Knowledge, Jason at Mustang3651, DSM at DSM_media. It's been a great week. We'll be back next week. You get the Cardinals. Who knows what else will happen in sports this weekend? It's going to be a beautiful week next week again. So we will be back next week. Thank you all very much. Jason, I don't know. We talked a lot of Eagles today, so we're going to end it with Go Birds today. Go Birds.
Go Birds.